bacteria in any meat product, but those are usually harmless, and I think the real surprise here was to find so many potentially disease-causing.
All right, so I'm about to ruin some of your favorite restaurants for you. But honestly, you need to hear this, because what I found out about how certain chains handle their meat is actually pretty disturbing. Look, I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but when you see the health inspection reports and hear what former employees are saying about these places, you might think twice before ordering that steak or chicken sandwich. So let's get into it. Here are 6 popular restaurant chains where ordering meat might be riskier than you think. Number 1. Outback Steakhouse. Let's start with Outback. You know the place with the bloomin' onion and those sizzling steaks. Looks great when it comes to your table, right? But here's what you don't see. Back in 2019, health inspectors found some pretty nasty violations at multiple locations. We're talking raw meat stored above ready-to-eat food, meat kept at unsafe temperatures, and get this, some locations were caught reusing meat that had been partially cooked and left sitting out for hours. That's not just a little mistake. That's a food safety nightmare. The thing is, meat needs to be kept at specific temperatures. If it sits between 40 and 140 degrees for too long, bacteria starts growing like crazy. And Outback has been caught multiple times letting meat hang out in that danger zone. Customers have reported stomach issues, nausea, even hospitalizations after eating undercooked or mishandled meat there. And that bloomin' onion isn't going to help when your stomach is staging a full rebellion. So next time you see that sizzling platter coming your way, you might want to wonder, how long was that meat sitting in the kitchen before it hit the grill? Number 2, Applebee's. Now let's talk about Applebee's. You know, the 2 for $20 place, late night apps, neighborhood vibes. But behind those friendly servers and colorful menus, there's some sketchy stuff happening with the meat. An undercover review by food safety researchers ranked Applebee's among the worst for meat handling. A lot of their meat is pre-cooked, frozen stuff that gets microwaved, grilled again, or just reheated. And sometimes it doesn't even reach safe temperatures. Former employees have admitted to skipping proper meat rotation to save time. They'd leave older meat buried in the back of fridges for days past expiration. One ex-line cook literally called it a roulette wheel of expiration dates. And get this, meat was sometimes thawed on counters for hours, exposed to cross-contamination. That grilled chicken on your salad, it might have been cooked from frozen with the center still icy. According to state inspection reports, Applebee's had repeat violations for improper meat storage temps, failure to sanitize cutting surfaces, and sketchy thawing methods. Customers have found ice-cold centers in steaks and undercooked chicken during lunch rushes. One person in Michigan even got chicken with visible red tissue, something that should never make it to a plate. But here's maybe the worst part. Multiple whistleblowers said managers actually discourage staff from reporting food issues because it might hurt performance bonuses. So instead of fixing problems, they just bury them. Applebee's wants you to think you're getting good value, but what you're really getting is a gamble. Number 3, TGI Fridays. Fridays built their brand on fun vibes and loaded appetizers, but their meat handling, not so fun. A 2018 investigation found that multiple Fridays locations had major meat storage failures. Meat that should be kept below 40 degrees was sitting out in prep trays for way too long. Workers said the pace was too fast and training was basically non-existent. One former cook said he learned meat safety on the fly after just one shift shadowing another employee. That's not training, that's playing with people's health. Here's something gross. Inspectors found pork ribs stored on top of raw chicken, with both leaking juices into the same pan. Another inspector saw steaks left on warm counters for 10-15 minutes uncovered while waiting for side dishes. These might sound like small details, but in food safety, every degree and every minute matters with meat. And their burgers? In blind taste tests, Friday's burgers ranked lowest in both taste and texture. People described them as dry, rubbery, and bland. Some even questioned if they'd been frozen, cooked, and reheated. Former employees confirmed they often pre-cook dozens of burgers during slow hours and reheat them during dinner rush. If your burger feels like it was made last week, it probably was. From a flavor perspective, that's just disappointing. From a food safety perspective, that's dangerous. The longer meat sits pre-cooked, the more bacteria can grow, and with ground beef, the risk of E. coli goes way up. Number 4. Chili's. You'd think a family-friendly place like Chili's with their famous baby back ribs would have their act together. But nope. Multiple former employees said meat deliveries often arrive late, sit unrefrigerated for hours, and then get rushed into storage without proper inspection. So the meat might already be halfway to spoiled before it even gets to the kitchen. One Texas location was cited for keeping cooked meat in plastic containers at room temperature for over an hour. Inspectors saw racks of chicken and beef just sitting on prep counters while workers focused on nachos and salads. Even worse, former staff said they were told to smell check meat instead of following temperature guidelines. If it didn't stink, it got served. Let that sink in for a second. Meat rotation is another mess. Instead of using old meat first, they mix old and new meat together in the same trays. Makes it impossible to track freshness or guarantee safety. One inspection found blood pooling under meat racks and rusted shelving. Even if your steak arrives sizzling, its journey to your plate was anything but clean. In blind taste tests, chili steaks and ribs ranked lower than most chains. People said the meat tasted like it had been microwaved and grilled again, which is exactly what employees say happens during busy hours. One particularly bad case involved a kid who got hospitalized with food poisoning after eating grilled chicken at a Chili's in Arizona. Health officials confirmed the meat hadn't reached safe internal temperature. The family thought they were getting a nice dinner out. Instead, they got medical bills and a traumatized kid who now won't eat chicken at all. Number 5. The Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory gives off this upscale vibe with fancy lighting and that massive menu. But that long menu might be hiding some serious problems. A former kitchen manager said their meat inventory is so huge, staff often lose track of what needs to be used and when. Steaks, chicken, pork, seafood, all crammed into coolers with so many labels, it's impossible to follow proper rotation. One inspection found raw chicken in leaking bags stored directly above produce bins. That's textbook cross-contamination, and employees seemed unaware it was even a problem. In another case, partially thawed ground beef was sitting on a shelf next to cooked meat with juices dripping between containers. That should never happen, especially in a kitchen serving thousands daily. Because Cheesecake Factory emphasizes presentation, kitchen staff focus more on looks than safety. Former cooks said they were told to make it look good, even if the meat was questionable. If chicken came out dry, they'd brush it with butter and reheat it until the plate looked perfect. But pretty plating doesn't kill bacteria. The portion sizes make things worse. One dinner rush can see them move through over 100 pounds of meat. Under that volume, shortcuts aren't just common, they're expected. Meat often gets pre-cooked, held in warming trays that aren't always at safe temps, and then quickly reheated. That reheating is usually uneven, warm outside, cold, unsafe center. One health inspection found nearly 30% of meat samples didn't reach minimum safe internal temperature. Even their burgers are hit and miss. Food critics describe them as inconsistent, some juicy, others dry and rubbery. And that fresh ground beef, it often started in a freezer truck 2 states away. Inspection records show over 40% of locations had at least one citation related to meat safety over 3 years, mostly improper cooling or hot holding. People assume a restaurant with chandeliers and $30 entrees must have top-tier safety practices, but nice ambiance doesn't equal accountability. Number 6, Panera Bread. Last one, Panera Bread. You might not think of Panera as a meat place, but a lot of their popular items have chicken, bacon, steak, or sausage.
Several former employees described a disturbing pattern. Expired meat being reused, cooked items sitting at room temperature for hours. Why? Speed and simplicity. Panera's model is built around fast casual service. Fewer staff, smaller kitchens, streamlined prep. That sounds efficient, but for me, speed and simplicity are dangerous. During lunch rushes, employees said there was no time to check temperatures or follow proper rotation. Chicken was kept in warming trays way beyond recommended time limits, dried out on edges, dangerously underheated in the center. One Midwest worker said they'd served chicken that had been sitting out since morning prep, well past the 2-hour safety window. The bigger problem? Most of Panera's meat arrives pre-cooked and vacuum sealed, but it still needs proper storage and reheating. When done wrong, this creates false security. One employee said it was common to pull turkey and steak strips straight from the cooler and toss them onto sandwiches without ever reaching safe temps. Cold cuts are one thing, but lukewarm steak strips? That's asking for trouble. Health departments have cited Panera for improper hot holding temps and cross-contamination. One Florida location got fined after cooked chicken and raw bacon were stored in the same container. In blind taste tests, Panera's chicken scored low. People called it bland, rubbery, occasionally sour. One critic said it tasted like it was boiled in a plastic bag and left in a closet. The online ordering system makes it worse. Food gets prepared in advance and left waiting for customers. If your sandwich sits on a shelf for 30 minutes in warm air, the meat inside might not be safe anymore. Customers have reported getting sick after eating lukewarm steak sandwiches and chicken salads. Most chalk it up to bad luck. But when you look at the pattern, it's clear Panera's meat safety approach assumes customers won't notice or complain. The pattern. So what's the common thread here? It's not about the name or how fancy the menu is. It's about what happens when nobody's watching. Unsafe temperatures, poor training, rushed procedures, misleading packaging, these aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a bigger industry problem. Companies obsess over cutting costs and speeding up service, trusting that customers will never ask questions. Outback hides sloppy storage behind the sizzle. Applebee's microwaves meat that's barely safe. Fridays serves cross-contamination with your loaded potato skins. Cheesecake Factory plates everything perfectly, even if the meat underneath failed health checks. And Panera wraps it all in a wholesome image that masks questionable prep. What you can do. So, what can you actually do about this? First, pay attention. If meat tastes off, looks gray, smells weird, or arrives at the wrong temperature, send it back. Speak up. And if they brush it off, don't go back. Second, remember that popular doesn't mean clean. Chain restaurants often have high turnover, undertrained staff, and pressure to serve food fast, not safe. Third, ask questions when you order. How's the chicken cooked? Was the steak freshly grilled or reheated? Is the meat pre-cooked or made in-house? You might be surprised what staff will tell you if you ask directly. And if they can't give you a straight answer, that might be your answer. Finally, when meat really matters, for a family dinner, special occasion, whatever, skip the chains. Go local. Find a trusted butcher or small restaurant where the owner actually knows how the meat is sourced and handled. Bottom line, look, I'm not saying never eat at these places again, but be aware. Know what you're risking. And if something seems off, trust your gut, not the menu. Because saving a few bucks or a few minutes is never worth risking your health. If this opened your eyes to anything, hit that like button and subscribe. And drop a comment. Have you ever gotten sick from a chain restaurant? What's your worst experience? Stay smart out there, and remember, not all meat is treated with the care it deserves. Thanks for watching.